I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Perry Municipal Authority, December 20th, 2021, at 6:15. Roll call, please.
Wines.
Here.
Morrill.
Here.
White.
Here.
Here. Dillbeck.
Here.
Bond.
Here.
Coldiron.
Here.
Streller.
Here. I do declare a quorum as full as we can get it. I will, invocation night would be by Gloria.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we're so thankful to come before you this evening, and especially at this Christmas season where we celebrate your birth and ultimately your work on the cross. We thank you that we live on the finished side of the work of the cross, and that you've given us this opportunity to serve you in all that we do. We just ask that around this table tonight, as we make decisions, that you would lead us and guide us with your wisdom. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Gloria. Item number 1 is the consent agenda. There's one item.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
See, I could have been here in a while. Wines.
Yes.
Morrill.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Dillbeck.
Yes.
Bond.
Yes.
Coldiron.
Yes.
Streller.
Yes. Item number 4, comments from those assembled pertaining to the items on the PMA agenda. Hearing none. Item 5, proclamation, accommodations, and reports, inquiries by the governing body. Item 6, any new business that needs to come before the authority tonight? Hearing none. Item 7, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Wines.
Yes.
Morrill.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Dillbeck.
Yes.
Bond.
Yes.
Coldiron.
Yes.
Streller.
Yes. Thank you. I'd like to call over the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Perry, December 20, 2021 at 6:17. Roll call, please.
Wines.
Here.
Morrill.
Here.
White.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Dillbeck.
Here.
Bond.
Here.
Coldiron.
Here.
Streller.
Here. Thank you. Item 1, consent agenda. Several items on the consent agenda for approval.
No, I don't.
What do you need?
Pen. Sorry.
Everybody wants to throw it to you. Everybody's
I was like, who has a pen? See how quick you decided to throw that at me? No regard for your face at all.
5 of them incoming.
What's said to throw the
Thanks,
ball at
guys.
throw the ball at their face, they'll catch it or eat it, you know?
I mean, I really
All right, do we have an
thought
approval on that?
No, I haven't heard of it.
Okay, motion on the consent agenda, is that where we're at?
Yes.
Motion to approve. Second.
Roll call, please.
Wines.
Yes.
Morrill.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Dillbeck.
Yes.
Bond.
Yes.
Coldiron.
Yes.
Streller.
Yes. Thank you. Item 4, comments from those assembled pertaining to the items on the city agenda. Hearing none, we will move to 5, proclamation, combination, reports, inquiry by the governing body. Okay, we will move to item 6, presentation by Mr. Alex Crowe concerning permitting process and related issues on the Richard Crowe building in the Perry Municipal, or Perry Industrial Park, sorry. Mr. Crowe?
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time this evening. Lots of fun stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Up here on our new building project, we've got a few points, concerns, and my consideration for de-annexation. And this is my first attempt with the city hall or the council. Anyways, not city
Excuse me,
halls.
I'm deaf. Could you kind of speak up a little bit?
I am too. Yes, there you go.
Thank you very much.
We got 12 points on the building. One, and I'm just going to read through the points, read this top letter. And there's all this supporting documents is everything from 1 through 7, which is non-communication throughout the city or looking for power, not having power, all that's in here. Anyways, we'll go through the letter. Any questions at the end of it, I'll be more than happy to answer. 1, certified inspector is not required in town of this population. 2, Craig Higley Consulting is licensed, asking for more than what's required by building code. Mr. Higley, with his unprofessional attitude, and Mr. Higley requesting the stop work order to the city twice so far. Permitting costs and the process through the city currently. Industrial power for growth, we just don't have it, and they don't even have enough for ours technically. Number 7, benefit of the utility usage of us to continue to use city of power for our future growth. Point of sale, reason for the de-annexation, we don't have a point of sale, so that the city don't benefit anything from the point of sale by not letting us out. Industrial park hasn't had any growth except for us in the past 9 years. 10, city representation won't answer their calls or get anything done until I circumvent. Requesting power to get installed since December 31st of 2020, and I still don't have any. Pushing our company to be effective, safe, and expand has been a hindrance by moving into town, and it should be an asset. So that's why we're asking for the council to de-annex us. We've got different websites here where every town is required to employ a licensed building contractor. We asked Google that, and it comes up and says Oklahoma Inspectors Act governs building construction and inspectors employed to perform building and construction inspections in a political division having less than 10,000 people. So we don't have to have an inspector. It's something that's been chosen, and it's hindrance. Population of Perry, as you guys know, this is 2019, 4,900 people. Professional inspector. I've called for inspections to Higley Consulting, and Craig, the inspector, advised that he wasn't going to come out. And after you wrote a check out of your pocket for $17,000, I think they ought to come out and inspect, and instead of saying, no, I'm not coming. I don't know what your expectations is. Mine is to show up, especially in a town this size. It's not like we have 1,000 inspections. We have a few. He's requiring he required a structural engineer to fix some base plates where the red iron is attached to the concrete. There's one of these here has the pictures that's been fixed. He still hasn't accepted the fixes, and matter of fact, I guess I'll go down through there later, but the building manufacturer who's built over 3,000 buildings all across several states never had an inspector ask for this, not once. It's a very common thing. They've had one, ours, and it's making it very difficult. I'm still on hold. My building's on hold. We've got the signed letter for the fixing from the engineer. The document and the pictures are attached, I believe in 1B, 1A. Mr. Higley on this project, and that's turned out to it's made it very complicated to build in Perry. And I'd just like to be rid of it. Bryan, city code inspector, wants us to be like an Edmond of a population of 92,000 people. We're in Oklahoma City of 643,000 people. And I live in a town that's smaller than that, and I like to keep the same values that we have as a small city. That's why I'm here. Higley, during my first job site visit from him. He threw a fit out there and started yelling at me and blocking my concrete trucks, wasn't letting them pour concrete. And he wasn't being very nice when he was yelling. I actually had to ask him if he was being friendly or if he was teasing or if he was serious, and he was serious. He told me that and become a problem. I had to ask him to calm down or leave. And then after I got him calmed down, then he told me I couldn't do anything out there without his permission and without the city inspection. Well, I had a city inspection. I actually called Brian for the inspection, and he sent out Jesse. Jesse inspected it and said it was good to pour. I poured it. And I let him know that. At that point in time, he started yelling at Jesse. I said, you can't yell at people like that here on my job site. You either calm down or you need to leave, period. And so I had to get him to calm down or leave, and then I had to get him to be civil. These things just aren't acceptable, the way I do business. Craig's requiring more than what the code's requiring. He passes the responsibility down looking at trained professionals requiring engineers to be involved. This grows the project budget by more than $40,000. This is 2 weeks of employee salaries, a welding robot, quarter of our installation costs. Craig has requested engineer plans on every aspect because he doesn't think the town has properly trained professionals working or licensed in this town. All our professionals have been to tech school, apprenticeships, and took their professional exams. They're qualified. And if they wasn't qualified, we wouldn't give them a license to work here. There's code you can look up there for that. All our machines was engineered by the manufacturers. They're clearly stamped on what they can use, what they draw, what they're capable of. All these machines have been on this circuit, the Perry Circuit Electric, for more than 5 years, and we've had 0 issues. But now they're not good enough to move into our industrial park. Not the machines, just the wiring. Mr. Higley, the load calculations are dependent on field location. Our licensed electrician has properly demonstrated over 5 years on these machines running on this circuit. Mr. Higley requested to address dramatic change after this incident from August to December 2021. The industrial park. We were the first ones to join the new industrial park in 2012. In almost 10 years, Perry hasn't been able to secure any other industrial for several reasons. A commercial lot was filled, however, not a single industrial manufacturing company has been added. Perry has demonstrated a majority throughout its entirety, have not supported the industrial manufacturing growth for industrial park for growth. A new road and utilities, with exception of industrial power, have been added. However, 9 years demonstrates that it's just they're having a tough time getting it done. Permitting has been in place for Perry. If they do that, what would you do? Why not go, if it was not reasonably easy to build in Perry, why would you not just go to Stillwater, Edmond, or somewhere else that has all the infrastructure already in place? You wouldn't. You would go there. I mean, that would be the simple place. If all the costs are the same, and I've been waiting on power for 13 months. The city council found out about it 2 weeks ago. It's a problem. We also know the council members understand the issues and are concerned working on this project. We keep helping our community prosper and grow. The city of Perry will be losing 2 great team members this year of how challenging this town is getting to get anything done in right now. We just happen to lose Jesse, and I personally think he was a great big asset for this community. First of all, the people liked him, we could relate to him, and he was just a good one. I'll leave it at that. List of issues on this project. The permit cost, the original one started off at $37,500. My first building, the big building out there, the tall building out on this industrial park, my permit was $350. I don't know, maybe it's 9 years later, I don't have that date here. From $950 to $37,500. That's not even remotely reasonable. for a town this size. It ended up being $16,888 with some negotiating. The same building in Pawnee, Oklahoma, $50 for the whole permit and all inspections, as long as you use contractors from the licensed contractors from the state. The same building in Blackwell, Oklahoma, $8,000 was the estimate of the permit. Not only that, they'd give you the land and help you get going, and you'll get some incentives to build there. They're industrial authorities. They're trying to bring industry to town. These are towns we have reached out with. One's got 4,000 people, the other one's got about 8,000 people, so you need both perspectives to find an average. You go to bigger cities in Oklahoma City, they might charge you the big money, but they also give you enough tax incentives and utility incentives to give you all your money back plus some. They want you to bring jobs. The drawings requested are much more detailed this time for the engineer stamp requested on every step, from the foundation to the mechanical. So the stuff that we've provided for the city for this build is a lot more complicated than all the other towns I've ever built in. And I do contracting work in 37 states. That says something when your hometown's harder to build in. And it wasn't prior to. In that same industrial park, I have 4 other buildings there that wasn't nothing like this one. This one's been a little rough. That's why we're here. Previous drawings I have used are the ones we turned in are a lot more detailed than what we've used to build the whole industrial buildings for other towns in Oklahoma. I've built over 50 homes, 14 commercial buildings, and over 150 buildings across 37 states. This is by far the worst problems I've had anywhere in my hometown. Larry, the city manager, I've called him 4 times this month. I've had 0 phone calls back. That's the guy who's supposed to be the head that we're all supposed to be holding accountable. I've had 0 phone calls with him. He won't even come and see me. He'll send somebody else. He actually sent Jesse 2 days before his last to bring me some information on another shutdown, just so he didn't have to deal with it. Electric. First, the new manufacturing facility mentioned, the city didn't have any industrial power left to supply us power out there. We offered to actually help them build a substation, and at that point in time, we learned about OMPA and that wasn't acceptable. But we stepped up to the plate to help the city again. And again, we got shut down. Not only did we get shut down, but all the other growth that you're wanting to do in the industrial park got shut down because they wouldn't allow us to help. And I understand the contract, but the fact is, we were willing to. When the city needed it, we were there. We had to fight the city. It actually took a four-way text to get the city to say, yes, we'll give you power, because we have 3 other, K-Electric, CRAC, and OG&E will all allow us to have power there, at that one location. All we have to do is have the letter from the city stating that we can't have it. So we're kind of in a unique situation. We have 3 sets of those lines on our property today, and it took 60 days worth of arguing or waiting or however you want to say it. And you can see the text, one of the pictures in the evidence behind it, stating that we worked over 60 days trying to get power, and now we're at 13 months or 14 months. We still don't have any power in the industrial park. Okay. And matter of fact, everybody else has cheaper electric, just so you know. And I'm still trying to still do that with Perry. Whether we do or not, that's nevertheless. We took to one of the members here at the meeting tonight, let us know about an industrial energy audit. We had the audit done on our facility. They averaged 10% on all businesses finding efficiencies. They could only find 2 in our business. We're that efficient with our resources. We don't waste them, we use them. That just shows that we're doing more things to benefit our community by taking care of us. With the difficulty and all the challenges, we we request de-annexation. This will allow us to grow more, cost less, and do it faster without all the complications. Our company is not a point of sale, so there's no sales tax. We are adjacent to a county road and a farm, which makes it, for the state, it makes it where we can do that fairly easily, especially with the consent of you guys. This is better for us in the city. They wouldn't have to mess with our inspections or even have to take time to call us back. With the exception of power, if they choose us to have it, or they can take the power and not, or we can let you guys, let our town keep making money of it, or we'll just get somebody else. Whatever, it's your choice. But we've got to quit fighting the same battles. We can keep building at our current location. Instead of moving a mile north, we've already bought a quarter of land up there to start doing our next 3 phases, or we can keep building in Perry. But right now, it's unfeasible. You can't fight these type of battles. It won't work. Any other industrial board that comes in here, or industry, they're not gonna fight you for 13 months for power. It ain't gonna happen. I'm tired. 13 months is too long. Code enforcement officer, inspectors would have no liability. They wouldn't have to worry about us once we're de-annexed. The city manager don't even take the time to call one of his constituents out. I don't care if he ever calls me again if I'm outside the city limits. If we have a problem, probably I'll fix the problem. But other than that, I don't need the communication. We bring people here in town. Over the past 7 weeks, 6 of those weeks, we've had at least 6 hotel rooms rented, and people ate 3 meals a day here. Over the past 7 weeks. That's just a small window shot of what we got, what we have coming here. We're bringing other businesses to town. We're bringing other opportunity to town. We have, our employees are some of the best well taken care of employees in the state. If they work toward retirement, most of them put in 20 years and retire multimillionaires. All they gotta do is use it. I mean, we take care of our people, and we take care of our team, and our family, and our town. We can't help it that it's not going both ways. Now, we are interested in it going both ways, but we do request for de-annexation. I have all this stuff here if you guys want to see it. As you walk through there and you see number 1, you could go to number 1, which is the very last page, and you can read it. You can read multiple texts where we've had to text people to get come, or where we've asked for inspections and just don't come. Any questions? What do we need to do to start the annexation, Bryce?
Well, there's a procedure in the statute.
We need it.
Richard, who'd you get these texts with? About the base plates?
Excuse me?
They were about your base plates.
Here, what
It
page?
says Taylor or something, I can't read it.
Oh, okay, this one here, this is Scott Taylor's, Taylor's by, Buildings by Taylor.
Okay.
They built over 3,000 buildings.
That's the guy you were talking about, okay.
Yeah, they've never seen this type of argument, ever. Everybody in the world notches the base plates. Every building I have has them. This one has 40, I think 41 or something out of 800. It's nothing. And we had to go get an engineer to sign off on it, that it could be done.
And the ones I did see, I don't know how many there were, 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, and there's pictures.
They look, I mean, I'm not an expert welder, but they look pretty efficient to me.
And the buildings, or the building that is going in, you're taking 80% of the machines that are already in, that have been working for 5 years.
All the machines.
And they'll just be moving to that building.
Mhm. Yeah, it's already proven. It's already proven on our system that it works. Our engineers worked in town for, I don't know, as long as any of us can remember. Everywhere you can imagine, he's probably worked in most of your homes, and he's wired a good chunk of his with. I mean, he's a go-to around here. He's a staple. And he's not good enough.
Well, do y'all have any questions for Richard? Richard, that's a great presentation, by the way.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex.
I'll put together.
We will get this addressed immediately, I promise. Anything else?
What does that mean?
I'll say that,
Well, I don't know when Larry's gonna be back, but when Larry gets back, we'll have a meeting. I don't care if we gotta pull in department heads, I don't care what we gotta do. Something's gotta give.
Paul from Oklahoma Municipal Management Systems is here. Paul, would you stand up?
Here.
You know, you've hired, you've contracted with them, and I've been in contact with Steve Whitlock for the past,
Right.
well, since the day after you contracted with him.
A couple weeks ago.
Yes, and I told Richard today that after this meeting, you know, Paul could go out there with our other representatives and kind of point out, you do have lights out there, right? Or do you?
We'll see if time permits.
Huh?
I may not happen tonight, we'll see if time
Okay.
permits.
But to get familiar with this, and I spoke to Steve Whitlock today, and he assured me that he was going to turn this around very quickly. You know, buildings have to be constructed in accordance with the International Building Code and 2018. And that's required by the state, and they put that requirement on you. You can choose to do something stricter, but you can't choose to do something less. But there is flexibility in the code, okay? And I mean, that is the reason why we suggested that we bring in OMMS and put a second set of eyes on this. As Steve Whitlock says, I mean, you know, of prime importance in our communities is economic development, job creation, the sale of electricity, sale of utilities, because without that, I mean, we wouldn't have much of a town. And so bringing in a second set of eyes is important. I have participated in one meeting with Richard and have always called him back because you know, it's important to me that this issue gets solved. You know, we could here at this meeting, we could let Brian talk, and we could let Matt talk, and we could let, is Craig here? I didn't see Craig.
Craig has COVID, he's not gonna be here.
Okay, well, good.
Come on, Larry.
You know,
Larry together?
No,
Okay.
but, you know, we could let them talk. It seems to me like you should probably, you know, point at us and say, solve the problem, you know, which would be a bit simpler.
Well, the news also shut down, so,
Huh?
I said, and they're not able to do anything, so, I mean, it's not like we can wait till the next meeting or something like that.
Yes.
They're not able to do anything.
and it's from my perspective, I agree, we have to do it by the rules, and things have to be done safely. But at the same time, we can't make it this hard this time, or the next one, or, I mean, I want Richard or people like that come here and build things to turn around and recommend that we build things,
And Perry,
yeah, here in Perry, and I don't think Richard's gonna wanna do that right now. And after 13
It's
months.
frustrating to me also, these two council people and myself have all met with Richard, maybe some of y'all have too, I don't know. But I came back and I promised Richard and Alex that Paul was gonna be here quickly. And quickly's not, and it's not your fault, sir, but quickly's not a week and a half, you know? So Alex would text me, hear anything today? And I've been asking management, where they at? Where they at? Call, where they at? Brian was doing his very best to facilitate the deal. And I'd ask him, I don't know, I mean, I've been in your office 3 or 4 times in the last week and a half, where they at? So somewhere there wasn't a sense of urgency. and I don't think it was Brian, but, this gentleman has been a friend of all of ours, and we're disrespecting him,
Absolutely.
and that's gotta stop. And so, and it's not that we're disrespecting the Crow family, we're disrespecting anyone that wants to come in here, you know? But on the flip side, it takes a lot of money to get some of this stuff done, so we gotta figure that out too. And I've always been under the theory that we need to have utilities and adequate utilities to our industrial commercial parks now, to get people to come in there, you know? And we need to also make sure that the level of communication from the top and our management all the way down to our department heads and employees that are involved in that, you know, to maybe have a better sense of respect and just not get upset about, you know, the project, because we're paying them to do the project. We're paying our employees to help Mr. Crow and other people like that, so. Brian, were you wanting to talk kind of on
Yeah,
your seat
you
there?
guys don't mind. Just a couple points, because I don't want to go line item for line item. But a couple things that were brought up was we were talking about the submittal documents and things like that. It's all perfectly in line with what is normally done with any business. On the permit that we issued, there's a phrase on there that says that this is only good for your building. This is not good for all the trade permits. Those, each one, take their own individual plan review because it's a phased approval. So we'll go through and look at the electrical. Usually we try to get everything done up front and at once, but because of the price of material and everything that was going up, Mr. Crow was just saying how important it was to get this thing up. So we all kind of put our heads together and said, okay, let's hurry up and get this thing pushed out. And as we go, we'll continue to approve the plan review. Right now, we're stuck on electrical because the contractor that we use, Craig Higley and Richard Crow, they're kind of having some issues on that, but thought it was getting worked out. We left the option on the table to use a contractor instead of a registered design professional. It's not out of the normal for us to say that the only way we're going to touch this is if a registered design professional, so you think architect, engineer, something like that, would come out and do that. I mean, it's not a storage building in your backyard that you're putting together lawnmowers. It's a heavy industrial use that there's going to be fabrication and things like that going. So we want to make sure that the employees and everyone else that walks through there is going to go home safe. Now, obviously, we can't 100% do that, but on our end of things, that's why you guys pay us to do what we do. You know, at the state level, you know, he referenced about the 10,000 mark. He got part of it right, and that was that we're not required to have all the licensures that you would in, say, Oklahoma City, Edmonds, somewhere like that. The state made that law because they know that small towns are going to have a hard time hiring somebody like that and justifying their pay wage. I don't know if I knew about those words, but there we go. And so they waived that and said that basically you can appoint someone to do so. Now, all kind of weird laws that go around that, but if you use a contractor, they do have to have all of that because they're not on staff. So it's a weird thing that's getting fought at the state level right now. But at the end of it, and we contacted the state fire marshal because we weren't sure at the beginning how to go about this because we knew it was going to be a big job. So that's why we decided to hand it off to Craig because he has more experience and has seen more of this stuff than I have. And Jesse for sure because he was newer than I am. And we contacted the state fire marshal and asked them, what would your procedure be? What would your recommendation be? They said, engineered from top to bottom, otherwise we will not even touch it. So we've been trying to cut corners and find ways that are still safe and that we can ensure what they're building without having to go that route. Just something else that was touched on, anything that's a modification in the field. So if I tell you this is how this is built to stand, and then I change it and do that, I can no longer ensure that I built that the way it's supposed to stand. I'm just using this as an as if, you know. And so to the naked eye, if we go out and see a bunch of bolt holes, okay, it's a bolt hole, you know, strap it down. If that's not how it was built and you modify that hole, this book says that I have to ask for engineering on that because I can no longer ensure you that the original designer, it's going to meet the way that he designed it. I know it sounds crazy, but we have to meet the minimum of it. We can go further, but we can't go less, because if we do, I mean, he could tell you, there's a lot of liability on that for us. Anybody that comes out there and does that. And that's why I say the state fire marshal won't even touch it if it's not engineered, for that reason. I agree, the processes do need to get worked. I think you and I have even had those conversations. We've tried to find ways to scale that back as we go along. It's just, you know, this thing moves about 1 million miles an hour, and sometimes you don't have time to necessarily say, okay, well, if you wait 2 weeks, we're working on this, and then people want to get going now. You guys know, because you approve a lot of the businesses that we have coming in, and in fact, I'll even say this, without giving away too much, there is another large business in town that is talking about expansion. Every bit of their plans has an engineer stamp on it. Like I said, that's more the norm, is that when we tell people, hey, this is a big deal, you know, you're probably going to want to get somebody that knows what they're doing and designs this stuff all the time to do so. It's less common whenever it's, well, we're going to use a contractor design, because most of them would tap out and say, hey, that's above me. I can't speak for the contractor because I'm not them. We just review what they submit and ensure that it meets this. And if it's anything outside these parameters, then this book allows us to ask for more. But again, we can't go the other way. But I don't want to get stuck on repeat and keep beating this thing to death. There are some other people that drove here that would like to speak with you guys, if that's acceptable. Paul?
But by
Oh, sorry.
contractor, you still mean a licensed electrician that is traded in this.
So, yes,
Wow.
but they're traded by the state only to install. Nowhere in their Contractors Acts does it say that they can design this sort of a system. So this is not like a house where they would go and just do a basic rewire. There's a lot more to it than that. And so at the state level, they even have their own board for design professionals that says this is the license you have to get just to draw something like this up. I know it makes it harder. I know it does. But again, not a small thing. Well, it's, for example, Love's. You know, you guys approved that. Every single page, every single plan that they have stamped by a design professional.
But they're also building 2 Loves every week all over they build Loves all
Oh,
over the
sure,
place.
sure.
It's a little bit different than Richard, who hasn't built another building in 10 years.
Sure. And also in 10 years, though, state law has changed a lot. They update about they review it every year, but usually you see some major rollouts in about every 2 to 3 year span. Everyone is familiar, I'm sure from watching the news, some of these buildings that were built in a little bit older of a building code, they're now finding out that they were not structurally sound. There's issues happening with them, and so all the time they're changing those building codes. And even the state fire marshal, I can speak just from when I started in this field in 2015, they used to be a lot more lax. Like, they wouldn't even come out and look at stuff unless they got a call. That was it. Now, and Bryce can speak to this from his other communities, they are cracking down on people because they're getting cracked down on themselves from the state aging and everything like that. So
does his building, his structure, does it have a stamp on it?
no.
Okay. Now, buildings by Taylor,
Are you talking about the whole project or the building?
the building,
The building, yes. The rest of the plans, no.
because I was gonna say, I can't believe that this guy,
Right.
not Richard, but buildings by Taylor, whoever you said, would manufacture something that wasn't stamped
The
engineered
building is
building.
engineered, the footings are engineered. All the machinery's been engineered, the welders have been engineered.
So we're stuck on electric, is that what you're saying?
As of today, yes.
How many other components after the electric are there gonna be?
Plumbing and mechanical.
So what about the other stop work order?
We have an issue with stop work order. We didn't do that because he built up to and he's satisfied what his permit was good for. So I didn't see a need to issue that. Because at this point, we haven't approved anything else. So actually, if he started wiring that thing without that, he would actually be in violation for not having a permit to do so. Now, because of the way that we worked everything, usually we charge you as you go, but he paid for everything up front. So at this point, we're just waiting to approve his plans. He can get his permit and go.
Only the electrical plan.
That's where we are today. I don't even think we've touched plumbing and mechanical highway.
But that's not right.
Okay.
I can't put the tin around the inside of the building. inside the building because I haven't, the anchor bolts have not been approved. So I
Alright.
can't do the 10. I can't even run conduit for the electrical. I can't start the what? Yeah, the lighting. I can't do any of the electrical.
I'm sure that's all part of
We
it.
can't do the building, so it's not just electrical. I mean, there's other.
So it's not really a stop order, it's just that we haven't said go.
Well, that's not, well, okay, yes. it has-
Because you said, I don't mean to interrupt you, you said stop order, he says no stop orders, I'm
They sent
confused.
Jesse out the Thursday before his last day of business and told, and had Jesse come out and tell me that they were gonna order a stop order and I'd be charged daily, be fined daily if I go past the 10 or the wiring. If I did it.
Here was the issue with that. The anchor bolts were installed. They had not been passed for inspection because we saw that there were field modifications that were made. To this day, and I'll just say this now, and I'm going to say I don't know. But when Craig went out to inspect those, how many ever times there was exchange back and forth, when Craig went out to inspect those, there's correspondence that says, you covered all of those. I can't inspect something that you covered. So you have to uncover the ones that needed to be field checked, and once that's done, then we can move forward with this. I don't know that that has happened yet.
I don't know if I can talk though.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I called 12 days before they were covered. 12 days before they were insulated to have them inspected. He never showed up.
We didn't have the engineer's letter at that time.
And there is a copy of that showing that he could inspect it and sign off on it after he got the letter from the engineer in that packet.
I think everybody wants a safe building built, but I do think that there is some timing and some communication issues that came with this project. And so when he talks about it being easier to build here, it's not necessarily not following codes. It's returning a phone call and coming out and inspecting 12 days before they cover it up. I mean, shouldn't have covered them up, but when he calls and he reaches out, that should be the easy part about building here.
Sure.
Because again, like he said, it's not like we're building, 10 buildings out there and that we have to inspect all of them at the same time.
Right.
I do think that that's been part of the problem here.
And I did talk to the city manager, and he said a respectful time was 48 hours. Exact words. That is not 12 days.
That's not 12 days.
So,
No.
Richard and I have been friends for a long, long time. Things one way, and that's 9-0 that way. And so, he gets stuff done, and I love that about that guy. He gets stuff done.
In today's
And
environment,
it's
you have to
just-
take advantage of people when they're there.
Pardon me?
When the guy shows up and he's ready to do work, I mean, you also gotta take advantage of that. There's
Yeah,
other people
so what I'm
behind.
saying is, if he's giving us adequate time, we have to show up and be respectful of that. And I'm not saying, I don't know, we're all of us are on the outside just kind of looking and trying to feed this together, trying to get pieces. But something's just not adding up.
There were some things that we've done pretty recently, I mean, within the last year, because we thought some of the other processes were a little too tough and were non-efficient. I mean, just like when we had the plumbing issues and they had to get a certified plumber and then they had to get someone separate to inspect it. And then when the certified plumber was okay to certify it. I mean, we've had other things that we've had to change because we realized that we're making it way too hard.
Yeah. And if you all remember back, I don't remember how long Mr. Higley's been here, but no disrespect to anyone, every project he's on, we have trouble. And I've been telling management that needs to stop. And I know a lot of you all have said the same thing, it has to stop.
Well, not only that, but we also have a permitting fee in place,
For that, you're exactly right.
For that.
Yeah, exactly right.
which turns out to be pretty unacceptable for the numbers that are here. And
But we put that number in place too.
I agree, yeah, no, I know, but it was to
Well, I mean,
alleviate.
I didn't want to push that off on
No,
you.
no, I'm just,
Yeah.
to alleviate
Yeah,
that.
no, I
issue.
agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we have been talking about, making more, I mean, to the point, more efficient for years now, and it needs to be, because we need to attract business, not
Mm-hmm.
not cause issues, especially when it's somebody local trying to bring the business.
Correct. Brian, did you say someone else was wanting to speak?
Yes, the only other part that I want to say that it makes this, sort of goes against typically how we do this, is none of this would have been started. Plan review is supposed to be all passed up front, so we wouldn't even be at the electrical or any of that issues. Right now, everything, we would just be waiting on tradesmen to come in and get their stuff. That's why I try to say, because I continue to hear about, and I'm not in disagreement about the process. I'm not at all, especially when it's just me now. So I'm heavily relying on contractors to help me out. But the entire community development department rests on these shoulders right now. And Matt for jumping in to help me out whenever he's here. But beyond that, like I say, we are trying to respond within 24 to 48 hours. 48 is as late as I'm willing to put it out, but there's some people that got to get their hot water tank checked out, and the next day a foundation can wait a day, you know. So I say all that to say that we are trying. I don't take it like you guys are beating on me or anything like that, but it's a broken process, and when there's one guy filling a bunch of shoes in a town of 5,000, the permit fee portion of it, every town does something that's unique for them, what makes the most sense to them. Because I will say, I heard him throw out some numbers, and those are different towns than we talked about whenever I brought the original permit fees to you. Just down the road in Guthrie would have been more expensive to build. I can't think of the name. It's down by Shawnee, but we called them too. Would have been more expensive to build in a town half the size of Perry than it would have been in Perry. State Fire Marshal would have been more, well, actually about $500 less from the original price. So we're all over the road with those. So if you guys are going to consider those, we've got to find something that makes sense for Perry. I say you get to do that.
And I brought that up because we passed it to alleviate an issue that we were seeing. And then at that time, we also said that we may need to look at that again.
Yeah.
And I think we should. And that's why I was bringing that up. I do have one more question before we move on to a comment you said earlier about the laws changing, or the ordinances, whatever, changing regularly. We, just because we adopted it not too long ago with the International Building Code 2018,
Yes.
that doesn't change until we adopt it again. What specific things are you talking about changing often? That
What do you mean it doesn't change until you adopt it again?
we adopted the International Building Code of 2018, which before that was, what, 2015?
Oh, okay, so I'm not talking about just the building codes. The state often will come in and put things that are not in this book. And then once that's the more restrictive, and that's what would apply. So the state has the authority at any point to do that, and once we bring that in and we're in line with the state, we have to go by what they say.
Okay.
And
That does not go in that book.
no, not necessarily.
Okay.
No. Usually we follow what the OUBCC, which I'll start saving you on the acronyms because there's a lot of them out there. We follow what they adopt. Usually that's the recommendation that we go off of always. This book is plenty restrictive enough that you have to be in pretty much a coastal city to go adopting things that are outside of, unless you get into your ADA laws and things like that.
How does one go, International Building Code's easy enough to look at. How does one go about finding information on the rest of that stuff that you're talking about?
At the state level,
I guess, yeah. Is there a?
Local Uniform Building Code Commission publishes the amendments to the state adopted code on the website.
It's on our website.
And you I print it out, and it's about this thick, this cycle.
Okay.
You just print it out, and then when you go to that section of the code, I always back check it with the state's amendment, because that's what the city already adopted.
Okay, thank you.
Does our code change when we were on 2015? Our codes don't change until we adopt the 2018, is that correct?
right, which we've done, but we started this project on the 2015 cycle, so that's what we're still basing everything off of.
But you did say if the state adopts something,
Sure, but this would be grandfathered at that point.
so it is still grandfathered. So
Yes, because
only things that were on the 2015 code apply to this building?
Correct.
Okay.
Which again, I mean to say this, is when they make the, what's the book? They make a book that's just the changes, and it's usually, I say it's not very thick, but compared to this, it's not very big. And in that, quite often, they will increase numbers. I very rarely have seen them pull things away, because they found that something they were doing wasn't working or it just wasn't enough. And in saying that, this book it's plenty restrictive enough, that piling more things in there, sometimes it sucks, because we have to go, digging through to be like, okay, hey, sorry, I told you, that has to be 6 inches deep. Turns out they changed it this year and it's 8 now, anything like that, minor changes that the state can adopt, and then it just becomes more restrictive that way. I'm talking all over the map here.
But am I correct in saying that even though when we were running under the 2015, the state is changing, adding, improving along, but we're not required to enforce any of that until we adopt 2018.
Correct.
Even though they've changed all this, we're still going by 2015.
That's kind of what I was.
On this project, anything that predated that adoption, yes. But when we said 2018 and you guys voted yes, that takes over now. So any projects that we have going on from this day forward, everything goes underneath that 2018 except the residential code, because we're still on 2015 for that.
Yeah. But even though they're changing every day, maybe our rules are not changing every day.
Well, they're not, the state's not changing every day, they're meeting every day, they have committees, all of these things, and then the state adopts every 3 years or 4 years or whatever they.
But we don't
get to
change
one, but
until.
we don't adopt until the state
adopt.
adopts. Right.
Yeah.
Right, the state adopted in 2018.
Wanted that to be
So
clear.
a project that's already approved and working, once something is changed, they're forced to take on all of those codes, so even things that were approved, they would have to go back and fix?
No, if it's something that we've already started, like, so we're already in the submittal phase and all of that. Whatever we were in at that time, from the stamp date that we received it all, that's what we're gonna run off of. But anything, like I said, past whatever date this body approved the 2018, all of a sudden it kicks over into that.
Okay. So some of those things would have already been approved before we just approved that not that long ago. I don't
Could have been,
remember the
correct,
date,
yes.
but it wasn't, so some of those things he would have already been approved for because it would have been according to 2015, not 2018.
Correct. Well, he would have been, let me put it this way, all the administration will fall underneath that old code cycle of 2015.
Right.
You're not necessarily approved, I just want to get the distinctions correct because we're still working through the approval phase.
My other question is, was Mr. Crowe aware that we were going to be requiring a electrical engineering firm before he started building? Was it something that was discussed with him that he would know that?
He's
has
had
those
the
expenses?
correction letters since he first sent plans. We've got, I don't know if it's in your packet or not, I apologize, I just didn't go. I'm supposed to be on vacation right now, so I drove over just to be here for this. But I don't have any of my paperwork in front of me, but I do know that after Craig's initial plan review, he sent back, this is what we need. And then every time they,
Part of that is that a electrical engineering firm, not an electrical contractor, would have to be.
electrically engineered, or engineered electrical plans is what it
Right.
says. So, I mean, I can't say that word for word it said what you asked, but, the indication was there that you're gonna need an engineer to draw these up. When we met with Mr. Crowe in the meeting that Bryce was talking about, we made an exception that said, okay, if you can find a contractor that, can draw this up and meet the intent of this code, we'll take it. And then it's just, it hasn't gone that route. It hasn't worked out that way yet.
And I do agree that we need to look at pricing and understand where we're at, and whereas, I don't know where Guthrie's pricing is at, but I would say that Perry is substantially different than Guthrie.
Sure.
As far as what we can attract and what type of businesses that would come here. We don't have the amenities that that Guthrie has. I would feel like Blackwell and maybe this other community that you're talking about that's down in the city. It needs to be not only population, but also the attraction of what will get businesses to come to different towns when we look at them, in my opinion.
Paul?
Sure, yeah. I'll be brief.
Could you come up to the podium and state your name and who you're with?
Absolutely. My name is Paul Gunderson. I represent the Oklahoma Municipal Management Services. I'm here on their behalf, and I am a fresh set of eyes. My qualifications are I've been in code enforcement for over 40 years. I am the sitting certified building official on the Oklahoma Uniform Building Code Commission, the OUBCC, and have been involved in adopting some of these codes. We've recently adopted 2018 in its entirety. Most cities work with the 2015, so, just to echo what Brian has said, once you approve a project under a certain code edition, then that's what you stick with. Where do I begin? I'm here to, like I said, to have a fresh set of eyes on this. I'm going to look at this through the ICC glasses, though. And so, in a way, that's good because I can be objective. So I want to look at this objectively and quickly. I wanted to respond last week, but I got called away on another in the city. I work with 15 different cities. And so I stay pretty busy. I can also tell you that because I work with 15, and kind of address you all too, different cities, I can tell you that permit fees vary from city to city because I'm not sure how you calculated this fee, but I know there's a formula in the International Building Code, the IBC, to where it's based on the amount of permits you're doing, how much they are, the revenue you're getting from that. There's a whole formula that's based on. So it's going to vary from city to city. I'm the chief building official of a town of 2,500. So, it's up to the city if they want to have a building department or not, even though they're not required to have a licensed inspector, just like Brian said. I see a solution to this. I'm kind of looking at the big picture, and I think we can come together and work some things out, but I can assure you that we're not going to sacrifice public safety. That's number one. So, that being said, I'll take any questions you might have. I have a 4-hour drive ahead of me, by the way, tonight, so that's why I'm not wanting to go out there and spend time visiting. So I'm going out to Guyman, Oklahoma. So, but I will be back, and I will be glad to tour the facilities, meet with Brian, meet with anybody I need to meet with to help get this thing off dead center.
Do you have an idea when you will be back?
Next week.
Okay.
I don't know what day yet, but it'll be next week, and I'll let you know.
Okay, if you would let us know.
I will.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions?
Do you see any problem with him hanging like lights?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to take back up what, not to say, I don't know Craig.
I mean, not with wires, but.
Yeah, I've talked to Craig once on the phone, so I don't know the guy, I don't know anything about him. I've talked with Brian, I'm gonna back up what Brian is saying. We really need to see some electrical engineering on those plans. And that's just pretty much across the board. So we're not trying to pick on anybody, it's a normal way of doing things. And it's not that hard. I mean, you can get a guy to, look at it, stamp it, go on. I tell you what, it's a great, it's a great relief of liability to the city to have engineered stamp plans, because all the liability falls on that guy. Okay, if you have a guy, a contractor, or somebody who's done it for 50 years, knows what he's doing, and goes out there and makes a mistake and the building burns down, somebody dies, that's on the city for letting you build without an electrical engineer. So, we're trying to work this out, but we're trying to do it in a way where everybody's covered and everything's safe. So I look forward to meeting with you further. Unfortunately, it won't be tonight. So, any questions?
Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate you being here. Sir?
Yeah. Mayor, this was public comment for that, so I don't know if you're done with the rest of us.
That's fine.
Okay.
Oh man, I've sat through 2 city council meetings in different jurisdictions. It sounds just like this. My name is Charles Snyder. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Oklahoma, both for architectural and structural engineering. And I'm a state licensed unlimited inspector and hold a whole bunch of ICC certifications for what those are worth. I work in Enid. I assure you, I've been told that's the hardest jurisdiction to build in. And then I live in Stillwater. I've been told that's also the hardest jurisdiction to build in. I've had family I really like Perry. I have family that lives outside city limits. Came here with the land run, the Fakins, you may know them. Well, that's my grandmother's side. I'm one of the irreparable Snyders. Anyways, I looked at the plans.
Are you related to Jesse?
Yes, I am. I'm his son, his oldest son.
Are you serious?
Yes, sir.
Tell your story about him after.
Well, so you know I'm just as much of a troublemaker as he
Yeah.
is.
No,
So
your dad-
now you know what you're getting into.
So Lynn is your mother?
Yes, yeah, she passed away this spring from COVID.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. So, I don't know if I looked at the latest plans on this. I have worked with Craig Hagley on projects in the past, just to be transparent. I also first learned about this whenever I got contacted by Sudlow Engineering, whom they reached out to get a price together for getting engineered electrical plans. I guess they didn't like the price of it. It is what it is. But ultimately, what it comes down to it is like, you guys make a fine product. In fact, most of the time, whenever people are suggesting, hey, what kind of shelter should I get? I tell them, get a ground zero shelter. They're really well built. All your installers look like they're not on drugs. They come out and do a great job. But also, every single one of your products has an engineering stamp on it. It's required by code to meet those requirements. And you've been done a big disservice, huge disservice. Like listening to this, I don't know all the details and everything like that. But in the beginning, when you started this project, you should have been told no right then. Not, yes, we'll go ahead and let you do this, get us this stuff later on this. For most projects, and you're doing a big project here, it's gonna be a huge improvement for you guys as a city. But the deal is that up front, they should require you to turn in everything, every single bit of it. So that way, you can get all the no's up front, know what you're gonna plan out. Now, you've had to deal with building in the middle of the cost of materials going up and everything like that. Like, it's a nightmare right now. It really is. But they should have pissed you off early, right? Forget my language. Told you no, you have to go deal with some pencil neck people like me, get everything lined out, get it stamped and approved, and then you start spending real money on that project. But they didn't let you do that. I don't know if it was wanting to work with you, or they just wanted to give you enough rope to hang yourself. I don't really know the intentions. But that's not the way it should have been done. And whether you do it inside city limits or outside city limits, whether it's inspected or not, it still comes with the same requirements. You have to build the same kind of building inside of city limits as outside of it. Which on that, and this is the uncomfortable part, the last plans I looked at, I'm not an electrical engineer, I'm an architectural engineer. I am a structural engineer. But as far as the modifications on the steel frame structures, they're very, very inexpensive to buy for square footage. And the reason for that is that they're engineered to use as little steel as possible to be able to meet the minimum requirements for the loads that's on it. So you go through there and you start putting notches and holes in it, change the anchor plates or anything like that. If it's a design I did as a structural engineer, I love it when they modify it and don't tell me about it, because it means that when you have a problem with it, I can go look at it and be like, oh, they put a whole bunch of notches in it. It's not my problem, not my liability anymore. Your liability, your liability. It's an engineering product, just like a truss, just like if you had your storm shelter and I decided, here's one, I don't think it was you, it's a more irreparable storm shelter company. So before I was an engineer and worked as an inspector, somebody bored a 2-inch hole because they wanted to be able to run an electrical conduit inside of that shelter. And as the inspector, I was like, okay, well, you gotta go contact the company, you gotta get a letter from their engineer that says putting that hole inside of that shelter still will meet the ICC 500 standard, is for storm shelters. And they threw a huge fit about it. And they're like, I do whatever I want, you go ahead and stamp this, the government already gave me my money for my shelter for it, why are you slowing all this stuff down? And it's like, because you modified an engineered product. If they put a 2-inch hole in your shelter, and they have a storm, and something goes through it, and hits somebody, I mean, you can still be found liable, but they'll have to get a much more expensive lawyer, right? That's the purpose for it all. So you were done a disservice by being told yes in the beginning. You should have been told a whole bunch of no's, get all your stuff in order. Those plans, I want to know who your electrician is, straight up, because I want to go to the construction industry board and be like, we got a guy doing electrical designs here for something that's going to be big enough you have to lay a transformer down. And they didn't even do you the service of putting a load balancing diagram in it, or a proper panel schedule, or even, not even addressing, because you're going to be doing powder coating in there, right? And welding. So powder coating, right, is class 1, no, I'm sorry, it's class 2, division 1 and division 2. That's all code talk to basically mean you're dealing with products that makes a fuel air explosive, right? Which, I mean, if we have those around here, you guys are aware of those. In the state of Oklahoma, we have a bunch of code amendments, talked about those earlier. Most of them are relaxing down from what the book says. Oklahoma specifically, in the code amendments for the NEC, Chapter 5, in place both for the 2011 and the 2014 edition, has an amendment in there that says that if you're dealing with any special occupancies, which your powder coating room would be that, it is required to not only have a design professional, but they also have to have experience working in that specific division, which means I'm not even qualified to design. I don't know where the sub-low engineering would be, but whoever your engineer is that you hire, they have to specifically attest that they've worked on that kind of project before, because it is a dangerous thing. So the deal is that whatever you guys decide to do tonight, decide what you're going to do. But I do plan on like sending you a letter saying, hey, just to let you know, I know that you know that we had this conversation tonight. Both of you. So that way, if something happens, if somebody gets hurt, right, I can be annoying all over again. Because it's really, really important to protect the people that are working there, and I believe that you feel that's important, but also, if you can't get the project done, they don't get a job, right? So, I don't think that you're being negligent. I think it's that you've got that good, let's get it in Oklahoma attitude, and you're being told no by a bunch of people reading out of a book. But those codes are important. They're written for a reason. They're written in blood. So, I guess that's my rant. But in the end, you were done a disservice. Like, truly. They should have told you no up front. You should have gotten 100% of that engineered. I don't know. I'd have to look at the plumbing on it. It doesn't look like you're doing a lot of plumbing. But ultimately, that's decided by your building official. Whether or not you want to hire somebody like Craig or him to be your building official or you to be the building official, you designate that person. They make the decision on whether or not it's complex enough. In the case of electrical, the state has specifically said it must be. For plumbing, HVAC, that's for your building official to make that decision, but you have to trust them and their knowledge to make that decision. If in your council, you guys are having arguments about how the code adoptions work, right? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, that's the reason why you hire people, you spend the money to have them make that decision. And you gotta trust them on it. As far as customer service goes, I can't attest to that. I do know that when I've dealt with other people before, when I worked as a building inspector or as an engineer, if I've got somebody who has these, I'm gonna do whatever I want, and you ask for the paperwork, and it gets to be a hostile situation, it slows everything down. I want everything in writing, everything. Because then, later when you get in a room like this, you have everything written down. It's like, they said this, they allowed me to do this happened, and this happened. And it just gets to be a mess like this. So, do you guys have any questions for me?
Thank you.
No problem. I really, really like this community. I know that you guys both sides are under a lot of pressure. If you decide to do your project outside of city limits, or get reincorporated or anything like that, that's fine, but it still doesn't remove your liability at all.
I built all my own buildings now, I still have all the liability from the get-go. Nothing's changed.
Well, that's fair, but it's also one of those where we have tornadoes. I got to go all over the west side of Oklahoma City after the more tornadoes and look at stuff that got torn down there, things that weren't built to code. And the thing is that in our state, a lot of people don't realize this, contractors are required to have insurance and they have a license we can take. For building construction, right, there's no licensure requirement. Most of them are LLCs, they go under, there's not really anything to take from them, and there it is. So.
When you say an engineering electrical plan,
Uh-huh.
engineered electrical plan is required, what level are you talking about there? I mean, to build a home, to build a
Well, in this case,
1,000-foot building, to build a...
right, because he's doing powder coating in there, the state code has been specifically amended to say, because the code as it defaults right now, without it being amended by the state, says that you must have a professional engineer design it.
So that was the requirement, was the powder coating, is what?
That's what kicks it in, yes.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
The paint booth is electrical engineered when we bought it. it is, the paint part of it is electrical engineering for powder coating.
Absolutely.
As long as you don't make any connections within 3 feet of it, you're covered.
So that is true, because that's the difference between your Division 1 and Division 2 within that 3 feet, right?
So the whole building doesn't have to be engineered, it has to be that paint booth, is that what?
So that's what kicks in the specific requirement in the code that it must be engineered. But to be clear, let's say that you guys say, okay, cool, this one little spot needs to be engineered, but the rest of the building, we're solid on. I mean, what amperage are you pulling into that building? You're setting a transformer for it, right? You're spending real money. He's asking, and you guys, he's asking, because you guys aren't providing him with enough infrastructure to be able to do it. How much, what is your amperage plan on that?
I pull it up there, you know off the top of your head? I don't know off the top of my head.
You have like a guess?
I'm gonna say 1,500.
So, this is not the remodel of a strip mall. It's a huge amount of amperage.
It's also the same system that we're using on the other side of town, exactly.
And that's great and everything, but it's one of those, then that means that's a really, really effective argument of whenever an electrical engineer is trying to rip you off, to say, I've already got this, I already have some plans together, but those plans, at least what I last saw, are super incomplete, because in the case of Craig, or any of the other building inspectors, they're not electrical engineers. They open up that plan, they're supposed to see what the wire sizes are supposed to be, they're supposed to see a panel schedule, what's gonna be on each of the circuits, there's supposed to be a riser diagram to show how all that stuff goes in, so that way, because they don't have the same level of knowledge as an electrical engineer, they can look at those plans, make sure it meets the minimum requirements as what's written out in the book, and then go and apply it to the building. What I last saw, that there wasn't enough information on it in order to be able to make a good determination that what was being put in was going to be safe. So, and I don't even want, safe's a strong word, but to code, which would imply safe, but you know, there's two different things to that. And in the end, there's life safety, which is a code requirement, but the code book doesn't specify what is and is not life safety. It says, here's all the things you're supposed to do. And if you have anyone doing it, whether it's somebody you're paying big bucks for, who has all the certifications, or it's the local dog catcher, their job is to make sure that anything that gets built meets those code minimums.
So maybe you said it and I was too inept to understand, but if you, just using this as an example again, powder coating's what created the requirement.
The absolute requirement.
But did that require the entire building to be engineered electrically, or just?
That one section is what would require it. I'd have to go look at the specific language on it, but the deal is that when you're let's say it didn't have a powder coating booth in it at all. Like, that's not part of it. It's just gonna be a big industrial building. It's gonna be pulling in a whole bunch of power, right? The building official has the right, as outlined in the IBC, to require it. Now, they don't give you unfortunately for electrical, they don't say up to 900 amps, no electrical engineering. Past 900 amps, do require electrical engineering. They leave it up to the building official to make a professional judgment of where engineering would be required. And I asked around and talked to other people to see, when I first got into this and looking into it, and everyone I talked to was pretty much, they were just like, yeah, of course you would do it. And I did make the argument, I was like, well, they already are running something similar, or at least what I had heard about it. I was like, it's gonna be this, I did learn it's gonna be like a lot of the same equipment and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, but it's still going to get moved, it's still gotta get it set up, everything like that. It needs to have engineered plans. That way if something does go wrong, right, you have that person's seal behind it, who, if they lead him astray, that'll be that. The other side of it is, who's your electrician that drew those plans?
Well, Warden Electric is our electrician.
Is he gonna be the one who's running all the copper in your building?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Because that's the other part of it too that happens a lot of times on these, is that they'll have the local electrician that actually works in the plant. Ran into this with, in Stillwater, in a famous boat engine company that isn't around anymore, where they had their local guy when they expanded on, they had their local guy do all the electrical work in it and just hired out that license from a local electrical contractor. Now, these people might be really knowledgeable, but it means they don't carry the same kind of insurance, and they don't technically meet the requirements as outlined by the Construction Industry Board in Oklahoma. And the answer to that, unfortunately, is that if you don't have a local inspector that checks it, it just has to be somebody making a call to the CIB saying they need to show up and take a look at it. So.
Any more questions?
Just for my knowledge, a little
Yes, sir.
bit, if you had a building and you put, just because I want to understand this powder coating and the cutoff and the different, if you had a building and you added powder coating to it,
Yes.
what would the rules be there?
It would require that you.
To go back and to get engineering on the whole building?
So
Or just
the building itself, like, let's say you're saying if the building was already built?
building exists and you added powder coating?
Yeah, absolutely. So it would require that you get an engineer. The engineer would certify that within that building is safe, right? And here's how you connect it to that building. Yes.
Okay, but you wouldn't necessarily have to redesign the whole.
The whole building, no. It's the same question you guys had for bringing things up to code. Same thing like in your house. You add an outlet right now to your house, right? It has exceptions in there that says, for instance, if you're in an older house, doesn't have grounded outlets, right? If you add an outlet to it, it also doesn't have to be grounded, but it does need to be a GFCI. You have to spend a little bit more money up front. And people are like, well, why do I have to do that? I've got this old electrical system in place. It's like, yeah, but what you added was new. It has requirements, not as much as if it was brand new, you're building a whole house, but it does have things that have to be brought up and done.
So in other things, there's a percentage before it has to be, is that right?
With ADA code, flood water requirements, and a few other things, they usually have economic thresholds on remodels that kicks that in. Yes, sir.
Okay.
But in the case of when engineering is required for a project, right? For structural, it's a little bit more straightforward. If it's an engineered product, right, that does. If they don't want to get an engineer involved, then they have to use prescriptive, which is like cold rolled studs, wood, and even then some wood products, and have specific elements within it. There is ways that you can do that without having to get an engineer involved, and it's very black and white. But when it comes to the trades, right, it's the building official's call. And it's in my professional opinion. And to be clear, I'm not qualified to do this design. I'm not coming in here and being like, oh, give me work. In fact, I don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole at all. It's already gotten messy, it's already dirty, like, no. But I have not found anyone who is a professional, right, engineer or building inspector. I talked to a couple contractors, one that works, but he works mostly in the government sector, so he's going to be a little bit conservative on it. But I haven't found anyone who that like was straight up like, oh yeah, no, just get an electrician to do that. Every single one of them said, what they're going to be doing welding and powder coating in there? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, yeah, no, you get an engineer for that. So it's one of those where you should have been told no in the beginning, along with everything else, so you would at least know what your battles would be up front and get the permission and then be able to go instead of being in a, because you've already poured the foundation for it, right?
Building's up and insulated.
The building's up and insulated. Whew, is there an architect on this project? No, all right. So it's not sprinklered, right?
Nope.
So you gotta have a 40-foot setback from.
60.
Is it 60 foot? See, he's on it. So 60-foot setback from your property lines, right? Has that been surveyed?
Uh-huh.
Good.
It was set with pins?
So you don't, and do you have any part of the structure that's closer to that 60-foot line?
Nope.
Because last time I looked at the plans, you had like a compressor shop or something like that that did stick out of it?
No, it's been removed.
It has been removed.
Yep.
Good call. Because that's the other thing, it's like, we also don't want to get in a situation where he builds something, and then later somebody comes out and says, what did you do? You can't do that, right?
Do you mind me asking a question?
Yes, sir.
For a guy that don't have a dog in the fight, you paying awful close attention to this project.
I'm pretty passionate about it, because in the end, it's one of those where I looked over the plans, and I both had both Mr. Higley and Settle Engineering contact me about it.
There you go.
So, and I was upfront about that.
Yep.
So I have worked with Craig in the past on things, and The deal is that ultimately, if you guys decide to go on and not get engineering on it, that's gonna be you guys' decision. But I definitely am going to send you guys a letter that says, we had this conversation today, and let you know that typically this would require an electrical engineer. Because of the powder coating that's in it, it absolutely requires engineering. And if you have the engineering for that, that's great. Does it show how it connects into the building and everything like that?
Into the building? No, it's just to do the.
It's just the equipment. So it would ultimately be the decision of the building official on whether or not they would accept that.
It comes back to an opinion only.
That was my
Professional
next
judgment.
question. How much of what you're talking about is due to interpretation?
I think in the case of this, for the code, right, in the, I think it's chapter 1 of the IBC, it says the building official makes the determination of when engineering would be required.
Section 107.4.
There we go. So, here's the deal. If you guys were doing, a remodel of your downtown area, right? And they wanted to get an electrician to come in and replace all of the electrical in it, I could see the argument for saying, we're not gonna require that, right? For something of this size, I can't see that, as my professional opinion. And I think that a building official who does not ask for engineering on this project, for the scope of it, is being negligent.
So, just to understand your mindset there, that could affect all the other buildings downtown.
It could.
But you would be okay with it on that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because in the end, you're gonna be running what? It depends on what you're doing in the building. But let's say it's like one of those boutique shops that come in and come out, or let's say, here's a good one, a cannabis selling operation. We haven't had to deal with very many of those lately, right? If they came in and they said, and this happens with cannabis stuff quite often, they come in for a place where they're gonna sell it, they're gonna need, what, 200 amps of service? Maybe, if they're running all electric in there with no gas, right? That's 200 amps, but then you turn around and you have a grow op, right? Grow ops use an insane amount of power because it's an industrial setting. And they'll throw a huge fit about it and be like, they didn't make me have to do this stuff down in Hoboken, wherever. And it's like, well, that's great and everything like that, but you're pulling a serious amount of amperage here. And there's been jurisdictions that have been really excited about having the business come in and everything like that. And they wire all that stuff up, and from electrical contractors that are completely licensed within our state. And then they start wondering why they start having transformer fires. Now that's an extreme example, right? And I don't really think it applies to this because he is getting a transformer, he's setting it. Every intent looks like he is trying to do, he's talking to people who are smart, but there's no proof in those plans that shows that it is being load balanced, that what the riser is going to look like. I mean, in the end, any building inspector does not have much information to go off of other than showing up after it's built, looking at it, and then telling them, well, you can't do this or you can't do that. So, and then they throw a big fit then because then they have to spend money to fix what was already done. Ultimately, in the end, size of this project, in my professional opinion, a building official who did not require engineering for it would be negligent. So.
Anything else? Thank you, I appreciate you coming and talking.
No problem, thanks for putting up with me.
Thank you.
Anything else on this subject?
I'd like to just add one more little thing.
Okay.
It's just a side note. Out of the 33 chapters in the International Building Code, chapters 3 through 10, their sole purpose of being there is because people died. That's how serious it is. And just as another side note, I can empathize as a builder because I completed Comfort Inn up here in Prairie. I built that. And that experience was fine. I mean, we had some code issues, but we worked them out. And it was a few years ago. We've gone through a few code cycles since then. But You know, it's, I see both sides.
All done, all in? All right. Thank you, Richard and Alex.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Item 7 is the city manager's report. I mean, we don't have a city manager, we'll skip that one. Item 8, chief financial officer's report. They are in front of you. But you know me interpreting them. So, hopefully Russ and Meredith, I know they're both off on Christmas vacation. Hopefully we'll get that lined up next meeting. Item 9, consider approval of an agreement with Myers Engineering for a waterline replacement initial assessment. Bryce has been working on this. I'm assuming with Vernon, correct?
Yes.
So you want to address the council, or it's pretty self-explanatory?
Yeah, it's a $4,000 deal. Myers Engineering will do an initial assessment. We'll bring it back to you on January 3rd.
They presented this last meeting to us, and on the water line replace, or the money that we could get to do water lines, and this guy's gonna get this turned around pretty quick for us.
Yes.
What do we do, council?
Make a motion to approve the agreement with Myers Engineering for water line replacement.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Wines,
Yes.
Morrell,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Dillbeck,
Yes.
Bond,
Yes.
Coldiron.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you. Item 10, consider approval of rural economic action plan agreement with Northern Oklahoma Development Authority, providing for a $40,000 REAP grant for the wastewater treatment plant basin fencing project. What I know about this is our wastewater plant up there has this fence around it for no one falls in it. It's been there for 100 years, and the fence is all falling down and broken. It's pretty dangerous, so.
This is the one that came
Yeah, that was,
earlier.
We talked,
Yeah.
we did a resolution to
Resolution.
apply for
To
it.
apply for it, right, yeah. Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Wines,
yes.
Morrell,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Dillbeck,
Yes.
Bond,
Yes.
Coldiron.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you. Item 11, consider publishing notice and setting a hearing date for February 7th, 2022 at or after 6:15 p.m. to consider changes of ward boundaries and approve the proposed ward map. I'll have to ask Dixie to pronounce the lady's name.
Shishmita.
Shishmita from NODA come last week and presented this to us. It's because of the new census, they have to realign kind of our wards to keep as close as possible the same number in each ward. So that's what this is. It's a new ward boundary map. Now that we adopt this is a one-time. This is the only time, if we don't, Bryce made a presentation last meeting about people being on the council and moving into another ward. If for some reason, and we looked at the map and I don't think it affects anybody, but if for some reason this boundary change would move and someone lived close and you get bumped into another ward, you still get to serve out your term that you were elected to. You can't be kicked off the council because of this.
So I wasn't available for the last meeting. I had a couple questions. If that's
Okay, go ahead.
How was this determined exactly? I noticed there's still some population number differences where it looks like if it was adjusted just a little bit differently, it'd be a little bit closer between the wards. Like I said, that was probably answered last time.
No, well, we didn't have a meeting on this last time. This is on something else. But
I thought it did come up, something about this came up in the last meeting, didn't it?
maybe that we were going to discuss. I don't think so.
No, the only thing we talked about.
Bryce talked about if there's another statute and it doesn't apply to charter cities like ours, but like a sister city or cousin city, that if Curtis was elected to that seat and he moved, it would still allow him to be in that seat to live out his term.
So I'll ask my question like we haven't talked about it before.
Okay.
How did the boundaries, I mean, I know that it's due to the census and everything, but according to the numbers, it looks like you could adjust it just a little bit differently and probably have even closer to even numbers. So that, I guess that's my question is how did we end up with these versus maybe a little bit more even?
She made several proposals. Did we include those proposals? Or we brought them?
I brought them.
And
Part of it is trying to make the lines straight and not over here to the alley and down and back. And you know, that kind of plays into it as well, of trying to get the population as close as possible and
Sure.
have it something
There
that's
was 4
reasonable.
options. And a lot of them are like jagged like this
Right.
through the neighborhoods, you know?
And I guess that's where I was actually going straighter lines is what I thought. At least the small numbers in here are population, right? In the
Yes.
Yes.
So like Ward 3, if you took, I believe it's 9th Street and just went straight south from the top to the bottom, it looks like Ward 3 would become a little bit smaller and Ward 1 would become a little bit bigger and make those two numbers equal out more and straighten the
What's the
lines.
differences though now?
Between Ward 3 and, so Ward 3 is 1149, Ward 1 is 1093, and it looks like there's less
There
than.
is a specific percentage that she has to work within.
Mhm.
And so I know she was working real hard to get it within that percentage because
Sure.
she's even listed out here what the percentages are in each one. But I can't tell you what the percentage is.
Okay.
But if you'd like to see those maps, or you'd like to have her come and explain it, you know, this is just done once every 10 years.
Yeah,
So we can sure continue to.
And Derek,
and
to
talk
your
about it.
question, I don't have the figure, but those numbers may not be right because what percentage of the people filled out the census?
No, I agree.
75%, you know, so.
But we can't set the boundaries off of that. I mean, we're setting it off with what we.
Yeah, and I know that she worked for hours and hours and hours to do this.
I'm
and
sure.
She told us it was like forever trying to get this
I'm
right.
sure, I'm not, it was just a quick, something I noticed so the reason why I'm asking is I hear all the time that our map, and, you know, this is a little better, there's a little bit more, but it's hard to determine where the boundaries are on the map. And so in my mind was trying to straighten the lines even a little bit further than.
Well,
That one's actually the
We
straightest
tried-
line.
We
there
tried
is.
really hard to get them straight. I mean, you should have seen one of the first ones I saw. This was like a bootleg over here and, you know, but that's one. But see, it like changed almost every
Yeah.
block, which we didn't like that because the up and down so much.
I think
You
it
know,
was,
there's just, I mean, you're welcome to look at all of these. You can pass them down there.
well, if they're worse than this one, then
Well, that's just my opinion. You can look.
I'll look worse. I was
This is
mainly
the
trying to
best
straighten
we
it up
got.
more. If they're more crooked, I don't wanna look at them.
Part of it too is we have to write that description, and if you're writing, go to this alley, turn, go 1 block, turn back south, go east
Yeah.
1 block, go back north, that gets really convoluted and hard to follow.
All of them have that weird little. Except for that one. Well, no, it does too. It's just different color. Okay. To me, these numbers, if we just took that line right there and went straight, it would, because it's like 40-ish, and would make Ward 3 go up and make it even closer. But I don't know. I don't know if that's appropriate for this meeting or not. It's just something I have.
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay.
And because, you know, you're gonna approve this map.
You're right.
So do you want it to be redrawn, Bryce, or how would you want to handle that?
Well, you know, that we could have Shishmita come back over and we could have a little, you know, subcommittee of the council work with her.
So,
Because this is your job, you know, to
Right.
get this right.
and I guess, Bill, you may have gone through it once before, but as far as everybody else, I don't know that anybody else has gone through this.
Mm.
Did-
Well, 10 years you said, right?
So,
It's 56 people. difference between Ward 3 and 1.
And I think 44, let's see. And I get, that was just some quick thing I saw and was wondering if, does she have to, do we have to go with her, I mean, how does this all work, I guess? Does it have to go with her recommendation?
No, no, but she can tell you whether it meets state law or not.
Okay.
You know, and she has the mapping and the census information. So sitting down with her and doing just like what we're trying to do here
Right.
is what we could do.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess, and maybe one other reason is Ward 1 has always, not always, but at least recently has been a harder ward to, and so I'd hoped, to me it looks fairly similar to what it was. It's not that much different in population, so I'd hope that maybe but we can only go off, like Bill said, the data that we had from the census, right? So, but.
And I really truly wish that people would be more diligent about filling those census out, you know? And I think it helps a lot in all areas, you know, maybe with grants in many different areas, you know?
I would like to know more. I don't know if everybody else does, but I would like to know more before we approve it and understand it. And,
It's pretty important. It will just stay on for a while, at least 10 years.
yeah,
Right?
it seems pretty important that we get it right. Do we need a motion?
Well, I think
what?
that you could make a motion for a 3-person subcommittee, and we'll get Shishmita there. I mean, since it's your duty, have a committee of the council look at it and make the recommendation to the body. That's what I do.
Okay.
And I think that's within this agenda item, because you're trying to figure out how to get the map right.
I'll make a motion that we make a 3-person committee to evaluate this further with Shishmita
Yes.
and bring back a recommendation.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Lines,
Yes.
Morrell,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Dilbeck,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Colburn,
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you.
Who wants to serve?
I would like to.
Also,
Okay, that's 2. Anyone else?
Okay, who's besides Derek? Oh,
We
okay.
have
I can, I guess.
And Derek?
Okay, and Bill.
Bill, is that okay with everyone? Does someone want to make that motion?
at least one. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to have Derek and Kevin and Bill serve as our 3-person committee team for the map.
Second.
Roll call.
Lines,
Yes.
Morrell,
Yes.
Colburn. I mean, White, sorry, I
Yes.
got completely on.
I was just wondering if I
Brown,
should even vote.
Yeah, just hope we're zigzagging.
Dilbeck,
Yeah, you can vote.
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Colburn,
Yes.
Stroller.
Yeah. Solid? All right. Item 12, consider approval of consulting services agreement with Willy Sheets as an independent construction inspector for the Love Travel Stop, County Stores Sanitary Line Project, and a citywide sanitary sewer Phase 5 capital improvement project. So we got several projects going on, and we just want to appoint or hire Willy as a consulting service. He's been doing outstanding work for us.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Lines,
Yes.
Morrell,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Dilbeck,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Colburn,
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you. All right, item 13, consider acceptance of a sanitary sewer easement for Love's Country Store Sanitary Sewer Project easement from M Properties LLC and Oklahoma Limited Liability Company. All right,
Brian, I think that you've said that Michael Martin has agreed to this.
His engineer made the recommendation to accept, and that's all we're really waiting on.
Yeah.
So he should be signing that document, and then it'll just be up to us to accept.
Okay.
so this is in the lot between McDonald's and the Mariachi, right? There by that Rutherford Road?
Between Rutherford Road and Mariachi, yes.
Okay, yeah. So there's a vacant lot there, and that guy's granting us easement to get the sewer line from across the highway, across to our sewer.
If I'm not wrong, Bryce, they'll be accepting 2 easements, correct?
Well, yeah, it's actually one easement. We have 2 attachments to the easement, Exhibit A and Exhibit B. One is carving a little triangle-shaped piece, starts at a point, goes down to the, a 3-pronged, but very small, which is right next to Rutherford Road. And then a easement runs east and west there at the bottom of that vacant tract. We learned that we have a sanitary sewer easement, line there, but no easement. So it's time to get that easement. And Michael Martin, by and through his engineer Jeff Gose, has told Brian yes.
Do we need to wait on that signature, or are we good?
You know, I think we need to move forward with Love's. We won't meet again till the 3rd, and they would love to get this, right?
Correct.
Can we make it contingent on the signature?
Sure, and I think you should approve it contingent upon receiving the executed copy.
Okay.
By the way, we did get a transfer also by the what's the name of the church? Assembly of God Church. They own a public right-of-way and easement of Rutherford Road, and they have the ability under their easement to assign it. And you approved that back in July. And they just signed that. We're gonna mail them all together to Love's. So yeah, making the motion contingent upon Michael Martin's approval.
Motion to approve contingent upon Michael Martin's approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Lines,
Yes.
Morrell,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Dillback,
Yes.
Bond,
Yes.
Calderon.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you. Any new business that needs to come before the council this evening? You sure?
Lord out.
Don't beg us.
Okay, item 15, the motion on adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. You can take it.
Lines,
Yes.
Morrell,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Brown. You can have the White,
Yes.
Bond,
Kevin?
Bond,
Yes, sir.
Calderon.
Be real interested.
Stroller.
Yes.
Yes.